everybody. Welcome to another episode of Unwise Girls. I'm your host, Jacqueline.
And I am the other host, Janie.
Hello, Jane. Are you excited for today's podcast?
I am excited. These chapters were really interesting, I think.
They were really interesting. I liked them. I had fun with them. I clapped. I cheered. I cried. I didn't really cry.
I'm so sorry.
These chapters were good. Let's get right into the summary. Chapter 12. We check in to CC Spawn Resort. As he and Annabeth float into the sea of monsters, Percy laments Tyson's fate. Annabeth finally tells Percy what she knows about Chiron's prophecy, a half-blood child of the Big Three who lives to 16 and will decide the fate of Olympus. It's the reason Kronos didn't kill him. Eventually they reach land, a port, from which they're led to CC's Spawn Resort. CC sends Annabeth away for a makeover and attends to Percy. He feels uncomfortable seeing himself in the mirror, but she shows him a reflection he prefers, and then transforms him into a guinea pig. Annabeth comes back in, newly made up, and CC, actually the sorceress Circe, tries to recruit her. But Annabeth, using the Hermes multivitamins to resist her magic, reverts Percy and the other guinea pigs, who turn out to be Blackbeard and his crew. While the pirates are distracted attacking Circe, Percy commandeers their ship and uses Poseid magic to set sail with Annabeth. Chapter 13. Annabeth tries to swim home. As they pass through the Sea of Monsters, Annabeth tells Percy why she hates Cyclopes. At age 7, she, Luke, Thalia, and Grover ended up in a Cyclops lair in Brooklyn, where the Cyclops used his vocal imitation to separate them all. Annabeth managed to free the others, but the Cyclops imitated her father's voice to try and stop her, and it stayed with her ever since. That detour was how the monsters that killed Thalia cut up. When Percy sleeps, he dreams of being on the Princess Andromeda with a mysterious punk girl that wields the Aegis shield, who opens Kronos' coffin and is engulfed in its light. When he wakes up, Annabeth says they're in the territory of the Sirens, and asks him to tie her up so she can become wiser to their song without being drowned or eaten. She still escapes while entranced, though, and Percy nearly drowns her to dispel the Sirens' lure, a world where she's designed every building, reunited her parents, and saved Luke. Annabeth is heartbroken when they're back on the ship, and she tells him that it's her fatal flaw that drew her in, hubris, the ability to change the world however she wants. They resolve themselves again to save the camp, and arrive at Polyphemus' island. 14. We meet the Sheep of Doom. Percy and Annabeth arrive, and see that the other lifeboat from the Confederate ship is here. They then climb up the island's cliffside and see, inside the Cyclops cave, a tied-up Clarice in front of Polyphemus and the disguised Grover. Clarice blows Grover's cover, Polyphemus decides she'll be his bride instead, and Grover will be their main course, and the Cyclops goes off to gather ingredients after rolling a boulder to block the cave entrance. At sunset, the time of the wedding, Percy holds on to the underside of a sheep, and Annabeth goes invisible, so they can sneak into the cave. And when they're inside, Annabeth uses Odysseus' old nobody trick, angering Polyphemus to distraction, while Percy finds Clarice and Grover and cuts them out of their bonds. After Clarice tells Percy that she was the only one who made it onto the lifeboat, dashing his hopes of Tyson still being alive, they hear an explosion echo through the cave and a cry of fear from Annabeth. So, what did you think of the chapter, Jane?
I think, the chapters in this book started in a fairly, dismal place. And since then, they've been, gradually increasing in quality. And I think with these chapters, I think we're back at the level of, some of the best stuff in The Lightning Thief in terms of quality.
Yeah, we're getting the same spot-on, description. We're getting the same spot-on, prose. We've got excellent humor and emotional moments. It's all back to the peak.
Absolutely, yeah.
Do you have any moments to stand out to you from these chapters as especially good?
I have thoughts and opinions about it, but I think as its own thing, as just a part of the story, Annabeth telling Percy about the Cyclops encounter that she, Talia, and Luke had is that's a really great addition to that backstory.
It's a really good little horror bit.
Yeah.
It gives a lot more context on why has Annabeth been such a bullying asshole this whole book?
Mm-hmm.
Because she's been really rude to Tyson this whole time, and it's, I guess now we get her, like, her trauma backstory on why she hates Cyclopes, but which is an interesting way to do it, but it makes sense.
Yeah, like there are things to talk about, but like as just like pure character stuff for Annabeth, it's really good.
Yeah, I think that part of what makes it really good is the idea, like it has a strong premise, which is like being lured in by it's a classic horror monster trick. Mm-hmm. The being lured in by a friend's voice and then realizing that your friend was never there at all and it was actually a monster. Like, it's good.
Just like my favorite horror movie, The Bye Bye Man.
Yeah, it's just like The Bye Bye Man. Don't think I don't say it.
Don't think I don't say it.
And I think that the good part about it is that, like, Annabeth is 7 in these chapters.
She is baby.
She is a baby, which is that's terrifying. Oh my god, I cannot imagine. And like, I know Luke and Thalia were like the older teens, right? But they must have been like 13 or something.
Yeah, I think so. Because we've seen Thalia before in Percy's dreams, and she was about the same age as him when she died. So
yeah, have we seen her in his dreams?
Yeah, in Lightning Thief. She like very briefly appears before he has a dream about Kronos.
Right, okay. And we get another Percy dream sequence here, which is interesting.
Yeah, where the character who I'm fairly certain is Thalia, but it doesn't mention her by name. It's just a similar description.
It's definitely Thalia. She has the Aegis shield, which is literally a Zeus thing.
Oh,
She's like a... Yeah. You've played Hades, you know this.
I don't read the flavor text. I'm too cool for that.
You're too cool for learning. Jane, you're such a jock. Oh my gosh.
Thank you.
And I wasn't, I don't know, when I like, I wasn't expecting her to be like a cool punk girl for some reason.
I guess it makes sense. I mean, she's from like the 90s? Wait, for some reason I got the impression that she was from like the 70s. Where did I get that? Doesn't make sense.
I think it's because you just said it, you don't like to read things. Oh, no, yeah, she's like from the 90s likely. And that was like,
yeah, it would have been about 5
digits.
years before this came out, so late 90s, early 2000s.
But it's cool. I like a punk girl character. You know what I mean? It's an interesting, like, seeing her engulfed in like the light of like the coffin is cool. I don't know. There's a lot of good stuff.
I think that dream sequence is like, obviously it means nothing to us now, but I think it really like hammers home how intimidating and creepy Kronos is.
Absolutely.
And like how well established he's been as a villain.
Yeah, like we just hear him from like the rumblings from the depths and like Percy's dreams and
occasionally mind controlling his minions.
Occasionally, yeah. Speaking of villains, let's talk about some villains. We get one named Circe this chapter.
We do.
What do you think of Circe?
Disclaimer, I don't know shit about the original myth that she's come from.
She was... Okay, there's a lot of Odysseus stuff in this. We haven't really talked about that, but this whole thing is kind of just the Odyssey.
I guess that makes sense, because that was mostly sailing.
Yeah, like, I'm pretty sure in the Odyssey they went through Charybdis and Scylla. I think they definitely met Circe. They couldn't do the Lotus Eaters because they already did the Lotus Eaters. But yeah, it's interesting. They have a lot of like, and another thing is of course the Cyclopes. But Circe would basically turns men into pigs. That was her thing.
I see. Yeah, I think. I mean, I'm not sure how I feel about like her as a villain. I think she's a one chapter villain. She's a bit one note. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts about her?
Yeah, she's like fine as a villain. I think she works better as like she's facilitating something interesting, which is like seeing like Percy's self-doubts manifest in a way we haven't seen before, which
is
like
she's there to basically set up this like really interesting chapter, which I think has like a lot going on in it.
Yeah, which basically shows off like Percy has some like big self-confidence, like kind of not like body dysmorphia quite, but like big issues with his like appearance. It's like very clearly like, oh, it's cool that we get to hear about his like self-confidence issues with like his appearance, because I feel like that's, I don't know, that's usually not something you would hear about with like I don't know, like a little boy character.
Yeah. I mean, I think this chapter is definitely Rick doing a theme about like unrealistic like body standards and stuff. Like the way that Percy and Annabeth both get like their insecurities highlighted and pointed out to them, and then are immediately offered like, oh, but I can give you this perfect solution immediately, and there is absolutely no evil downsides to this at all.
Yeah. And that's pretty good. Is Cersei a TERF?
She might be a little bit a TERF. I mean, because Percy's trans and she discriminates against him, so obviously.
I would write a fic where this is Percy's like discovery of like dysphoria.
Please do.
You know, like people do that shit all the time with Harry Potter. Like, oh, Harry looks into the mirror and what he sees is him as with his parents, but also as a girl, and that's fine, whatever, who cares. It's, if you want to make trans Harry Potter fan fiction, go for it, I guess. If that's your way of rebellion, your kind of useless way of rebellion, then fine, that's fine. But
you should switch to a different children's book franchise like Percy Jackson and then listen to all the cool podcasts about it.
Yeah, like Unwise Girls.
Yeah.
No, yeah, but I think there could be an interesting interplay if somebody wanted to write that fan fiction of like TERF Cersei and dysphoric Percy seeing the perfect image in the mirror, and it's, huh, girl, something like that. It could be fun, but I think that like Cersei's whole thing is that she's like, all men are evil and the cause of problems. Mm-hmm. And the way that we want to do this is by reclaiming the power of magic. Like it's an interesting, it's not actually that interesting a character. I've seen this character a million times.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I thought it was going to go in a very different direction when I like first read this chapter. Because like when it describes like, oh, there's only women on this island, I thought we were on the island of Lesbos. I thought Percy was going to get force femmed.
Listen, as much as I would love it if every single character in every single book ever made got force femmed, I guess maybe I just like, I don't know, that could have been interesting. I saw Cece and I was immediately like, oh, it's Cersei. Okay, that makes sense.
I was like, oh, cool, it's the green hair girl from Code Geass.
Oh, the pizza girl, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is she the one artists always have her with like her butt out and like the pizza?
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
I can speak with authority on this.
Okay. But yeah, I think that like, I don't know, it's not that interesting a villain, but she is interesting for what she sets up.
Mm-hmm. Also, Blackbeard's in it, and that's kind of cool.
That was fun and unexpected. Just like one of the hamsters Percy has put in a cage with his Blackbeard and his crew. Like, was there like a mysterious legend of like Blackbeard disappearing?
No, he died. It's fairly well documented. I believe.
I'm gonna look this up really fast because that's always good for podcasts, is looking things up really quick.
I'm almost certain his head got cut off and taken as a trophy.
Yes.
Yes.
That's exactly right. His corpse was thrown to the inlet, and his head was suspended from the bowsprit of Maynard's stoop, so that he could collect a reward for it. Interesting. I wish I was a pirate. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Piracy is cool.
Maybe that was the mist. You know, maybe the mist made all those people think that they killed Blackbeard, but in actuality, it was just like some like random pirate with like a dark beard.
The mortals just see him getting beheaded, but actually he's just the son of Ares chugging a milkshake and turning into a guinea pig.
Oh yeah, they did say that he was the son of Ares, didn't they?
That's, you know what? I sometimes object to these historical, oh, this person was actually a demigod. Nah, this one makes sense. I'm okay with this.
They put in Amelia Earhart as like a daughter of Athena, I think.
Did she just do airplanes? Is that her thing?
Yeah, she flew.
Okay.
You can remember this by her name being Amelia Earhart.
I see.
I guess you wouldn't know as much about her since you're a British.
I am, unfortunately. I'm trying to get help for it, but...
I believe, Jane, I will support you in your British conversion therapy.
Thank you.
No, she, I mean, it's an interesting thing to, like, say because she, like, disappeared.
Did she?
I think she disappeared over the Bermuda Triangle.
Huh. I'm kind of surprised she didn't show up in that case.
That's true. I'm not finding anything saying it was the Bermuda Triangle, but she did disappear. And was never found, which is really interesting.
Does this mean Blackbeard and Hitler are half brothers?
I think they'd be more like cousins, right?
No, because they both be Ares kids. Oh no, wait, I'm sorry.
Hitler is not an Ares
Hades.
kid. Hitler is an Ares kid. Horrifying sentence to say, but we've been forced to.
Oh yeah, it'd be kind of weird if Clarice was also half brothers with Hitler.
I can't think about. We have to pretend like that never happened. We have to pretend like that never happened. We have to. We just have to like excise that from our brains. We have to remove that little chunk of gray matter, eat it or something. I don't know. So it's not in our heads anymore because we can't talk about. It's so bad. It completely breaks the story. I just can't. We can't. It's so bad, Jane.
If it's any consolation, it seems like Rick also doesn't want to talk about it anymore as well, because he's like folding some extra mythology and stuff into the World War II stuff to make it not just Hitler was Hades' kid, Winston Churchill was Poseidon's kid, or whatever.
Yeah. Oh, Christ. No, you're right, though, because we do get to hear a bit more about like the World War II stuff with, I think it was because of the prophecy.
Yeah.
We hear that like it wasn't just because of World War II that they decided to stop having kids. It was because one of their kids was going to grow up and become 16 and then decide the fate of Olympus.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty standard prophecy, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, like, the prophecy being the hero might turn evil is like, that's nothing new. But I do feel like it's been pretty well justified so far in this book by, like, making Percy a bit more complex and making him see the world in more shades of grey.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, he has a monster for a brother now, and we're seeing real parallels between him and Clarice. Yeah,
and we get to, like, you know, like, Luke makes a few points or whatever, and Annabeth admits that, like, it admits that she, like, is tempted by the idea of just, like, destroying what there is and, like, replacing it by herself, too. And I do like that we're getting that more, like, I guess, full exploration of what people would feel about this, because, like, Annabeth is, like, some of the worst things that have ever happened in the world are because of, like, the West or whatever.
TM.
And TM. We are going to be playing a lot with the concept of the West in this book, even if that is kind of a weird concept in like real historical and like political analysis, just because it is like so prevalently used.
Yeah, it comes up a lot.
But we don't really get it's a pretty like light jab. Like she's like, there's a lot of bad things, but ultimately, we gotta, vote for politicians and reform it.
I don't think she says that exactly, but that is the spirit of it.
It's a very lib thing. It's a very lib feeling, whole thing. Speaking of liberals,
let's
talk about some other things that just do nothing over and over. It's like the same stuff over and over again.
I see.
and let's talk about how we get introduced to the Lotus Casino. So they just walk into another evil place again,
and they even remark on how stupid it was to do that.
Yeah, I know this is a really easy formula to walk off to, and it's really easy because you can introduce it in a fun integration between modern world and myth thing. And for that, it's it's a good formula. But also, if it's over and over again, they stop in at the curio store and it's Medusa. They stop in at a casino and it's the Lotus Eaters. It's just the same thing over and over again, kind of.
Yeah, and I feel especially when the book is set in because Lightning Thief is very firmly urban fantasy, whereas this is we're in the Sea of Monsters. We are in full fantasy world. So I think there's a really good opportunity there to break away from that formula. But this that's one of the big problems with the CC chapter is that it doesn't do that. And
I think it's kind of an interesting concept, but it'd be cooler, I don't really understand why. Why? I mean, I guess I kind of do. I don't know. It's interesting because, it's an understandable disguise. Maybe somebody just floats into the Sea of Monsters, and, they're like, oh, there's a resort or whatever, and, I can get some water, and then, they get, stuff. But, I don't know. It's kind of boring now.
Yeah, I already kind of felt like it was... Yeah, it was getting a little bit overused by the Princess Andromeda. And now it feels like this is good, but it needs to be put back on the shelf for a while before you use it again.
And it felt like the Princess Andromeda and the Monster Donut thing were also kind of versions to this idea, because, they immediately know that there are monsters there, and they're not, there as, oh, let's have some fun on this boat while we're on our journey. They're there as we know there are monsters here, and we're just gonna try and we're just hitching a ride. And we're also seeing what's going on because Hermes pointed them there. And the Monster Donut thing is it's oh, Tyson did that while we were asleep. He got into his own little inventory where he mistakenly went to a donut shop.
Yeah, and it's obvious on its face that it's some kind of weird monster trap.
Yeah. This doesn't really do that. It just kind of feels oh, we're at a resort? That's fun. Even though they both admit, they admit oh, it's kind of weird. We're just doing the same thing again. It's not it kind of feels like it's going backwards.
Yeah, it's it's not lampshading it in a clever way. It's just acknowledging that yes, they've done this before, and yes, they are doing it again.
Yeah. You want to talk about the sirens?
Yeah, let's talk about the sirens.
You know what? How about instead we talk... Okay. Okay. Fuck, what's transition? I don't remember how I said into the last part, so I don't know how to transition properly. Oh god, this feels like I'm 14 all over again.
Oh my god. Hey Jacqueline, what are your thoughts on the sirens?
Oh, thank you, Jane. I've been thinking about the sirens a lot. I think they are so smexy and... Okay,
Jesus.
So I want to talk about the sirens because it's really interesting that they allow us to get more of a characterization for Annabeth.
Yeah.
I think it's cool that we get Annabeth... It's basically stuff we already know. Annabeth wants her parents to be reunited. She wants to be the cool architect of the world. And she wants Luke to be good again, but it's good seeing that we get to see inside her head and have it all kind of put together in the way that she sees it by like going to the dream world that the sirens construct for her. And I think that's good because Annabeth is like a pretty like well fleshed out character by this point.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't know. She's basically the same amount of like a character as Percy is, which is like maybe shouldn't be a lot to say, but it feels like, maybe sometimes side character girls aren't as much of a character as like main character boys in a lot of YA books.
Perhaps. We're just glaring angrily at pretty much every YA author at this point.
Yeah.
I think it is also like, because while this is stuff that we know about her, it does recontextualize it a bit. Because like we know that she wants Luke to be good again. We know that she wants her parents to get back together. We didn't know that this was like the deepest desire of her heart.
That's true.
That like the ultimate thing that she would like to be happy is completely impossible and out of reach, and she knows that.
Yeah, and that's really sad.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I think it's it's definitely profoundly like, I don't know, profound, but like it's very sad. It's good. I'm glad we got a closer look at her like psyche.
Sorry.
No, you can go ahead.
I was just gonna say this is also another example of like CC being pretty flat in her own right, but also like setting up some interesting stuff for other characters to do later. Because there's a throwaway line in her chapter where she says, "We are not so different, you and I," to Annabeth, which is like that's standard villain bullshitting. All villains say that all the time. But then, like, the story actually follows through on that by showing us that Annabeth does actually have a lot of hubris and a desire to, like, remake the world in her own image. That's just a really, really good attention to detail.
Yeah, I agree. It's not like a detail you think would be picked up on at all.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that they do.
I also think it's just good characterization for Percy that, like, because we're pretty solidly in his darkest hour at this point. Like, he is sitting over the wheel of the pirate ship he has, feeling miserable because his half-brother is dead.
Yeah.
But he still, like, dives into the water to save his friend. He's, like, he does everything he can to make sure that she can do her weird experiment. It's just really nice. It shows his strength of character.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad that we get that, like, we talk about how Percy is sad a lot in these episodes.
Mm-hmm.
But I never realized how much of a sad boy he is, because he's like, wow, maybe I am just like a guinea pig. I'm just like a small little rodent. I should just like be crushed under the boot of like life, and just like I can have no effect on the world. I am worthless. I am nothing. And it's like, oh God, Percy.
I mean, yeah, this chapter also contains the second time in these few chapters and the third time in the series that he's made a throwaway remark about killing himself. So
yeah,
I think Percy needs to go to therapy.
Percy really needs therapy. Do they have a therapist at Camp Half-Blood?
I think that was just Mr. D, and he just sits down on the sofa and then insults you.
Mr. D does feel like he could be a good therapist. Like outside of like office hours, he's like kind of a jerk who will rib you a bit, but he's like, he would ultimately be like, have some really deep insights about like how to like actually like work. I don't know, maybe he wouldn't. Actually, he would really suck as a therapist, I think.
He's an alcoholic.
I mean, you can be an alcoholic therapist, but I don't know.
I don't think Mr. D has... Maybe it's like a do as I say, not as I do kind of situation, where he's screwed up his life enough to get stuck in this assignment he hates, and he just tells people like, hey, don't piss off Zeus, that's a bad idea. And Percy's already gone against that.
Do you think Chiron would be a good therapist?
I mean, fascist piss horse jokes aside, probably. He's a very fatherly figure. He's like the quintessential good mentor type character.
Yeah, I think that like, first of all, I think there should be a Camp Half-Blood therapist for sure.
They need one.
they need one. They send out children on quests every summer. That's literally not good for your health.
Actually, I guess
what's
they hadn't sent out someone on a quest for like 5 years after Luke's last one, so maybe they like fired the therapist because they didn't need them anymore. And they haven't gotten around to hiring a new one yet.
I guess that's true. They're also like every single one of them will have the exact same problem, which is that one of their parents will never interact with them. So I think like as long as you have like somebody who is at least like mildly equipped to deal with that subject, then you can probably like have a decent little setup going on.
I mean, you say that most of the kids are going to have the same problem of their parent not talking to them. Some of them are going to have the problem of like, I lost a limb.
I mean, yeah, that too, but that's for the regular doctor. I guess for the brain doctor too.
You get some PTSD for getting your arm bitten off by a dragon or something.
But that's like we said, they already fired that person.
They did. Which Greek god do you think was the therapist?
Which Greek god was the like for who? For like it's like the god of therapy, or for like the the Olympian family therapist?
Oh god, I would not envy anyone that position. No, but I mean Mr. D works at the camp. Which like Olympian do you think they would have dragged down to work as a therapist for a while and then sacked?
Oh, okay, yeah. I think it'd be really funny if it was Apollo, because he's like the god of medicine, and it'd be really funny if he was like, if he like, just imagining the kind of person that I think they would make Apollo, but is like, I think he'd be like a real big Dudebro therapist.
Is that a thing?
Like a Dudebro therapist?
What is that like? Paint me a picture.
I don't know, like you get into their office and they're like, oh hey Jane, like hey, how you doing today? Yeah, no, oh, how am I doing? I was off, doing some longboarding. I was like doing some cool. But like, oh, so how like that? How's that make you feel? You know what I mean? Like, oh, I don't know. Oh yeah, that's kind of. I can see how that would hurt. That is a really hurtful comment. I think that there's. It's really good that you're opening up about this, though. You know what I mean? Like, I think that you gotta talk to people about this. Have you thought about working on getting your license some more? It's cool. It's cool to just go around driving your bike. DIY shit, man. But like, you gotta go get that license because you're like gonna be living on your own soon. And oh god, now I'm horrifying myself.
Jacqueline, you good?
I'm just like mentally projecting. I don't know. Anyway, that's my impression. That's my impression of a Dudebro therapist.
He's like a sensitive Dudebro.
Yeah, you gotta have a sensitive Dudebro for a therapist. Oh Christ. Are we talking about? Is this a podcast? What are we doing?
I mean, I'm talking and the little spiky things on Audacity are going up, so I think we're doing a podcast.
Okay, let's talk about the other chapters.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Cyclopes.
I think we specifically need to focus in on the man-eating piranha sheep.
I do like the sheep. I think they're cute. I think they're horrifying. They ate a deer, and they're like really big ones. And like Percy can like grab onto underneath them and like hold on. I would love to hold on to a sheep. Oh, those aren't the killer ones?
No. He has Polyphemus has like I think normal sheep on one side of the island, and killer sheep on the other side of the island.
Oh, I didn't catch that at all. Thank you for letting me know.
Of course.
Yeah, but he managed to hang on to one of them, and they're cute. But I want to talk about how the Cyclopes are portrayed in this.
Yeah, that's...
Okay. You get into a problem with any single fantasy, like... here's the problem. If you give any sort of coding to any fantasy race, or like species, it'd be more accurate, and then make them all evil, that automatically becomes like a really weird metaphor, even if you don't mean it to be.
Sure fucking does.
Now the problem is that there's a bit of nuance here, because it's arguable how much of like how intentioned this was. So like maybe we're just reading too much into it about Tyson or whatever.
I don't think Rick thought about this, but I also don't think it's like reading too much into it to talk about it.
Yeah, but I think like there is a point where like every single Tyson, every single Cyclops we meet is evil except for Tyson.
Yep.
And I guess like, well, I mean, I don't know, maybe the ones who like work at the forgers aren't evil.
I mean, they make monster balls that attack children, so...
Yeah, but that's normal. That's just, like, a thing you have to do.
That's true, actually.
Yeah.
I'm essentially surprised that the gods haven't murdered Percy yet.
Yeah, you know. And, like, I think that there's a little bit of a problem where, like, you show Tyson as, like, kind of being coded as, like, a kid with like, a developmental disability or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And... then you like get into the thing where it's like all the Cyclops are really dumb and easily tricked, and they're evil and they're big, and it's kind of like tiresome. I don't know, like
it's cool and smart to play tricks on this character who I've inadvertently coded as having a developmental disability.
Like, I don't know if that's I don't know if him being a Cyclops is like where the coding comes from, though.
But like, all the other Cyclopes are like portrayed as like, I don't want to say in the same way. They are portrayed as like comedy stupid.
I'd push back on that because we haven't met any other Cyclopes beyond
we know about the one in the Annabeth, Talia, and Luke ran into.
But we didn't really hear anything about that person, the Cyclops personality.
Oh, that's true, I guess.
So I would argue that the only two we have are like Tyson and Polyphemus to go off of.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess we know that like Polyphemus, you know, he gets tricked by the old, he can't see very well. He got his eye poked out, and he gets tricked easy by. But I don't know if that's, like, the same kind of coding that Tyson has, basically. Which I think, like, comes off a lot differently because there are a lot of elements that add up to it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's... I don't know. I don't think it's quite the same thing, but I understand what you're saying.
I know. I'm not saying that Rick is like, haha, it's funny to play tricks on people who have disabilities. I think he didn't think about what he was writing and has accidentally written something that reads that way.
Yeah, I just don't know if it does read that way to me, at least.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I get you. I think that like I do really like this chapter because we get more Clarice stuff.
Clarice is rapidly turning into my favorite character.
Honestly, same. Like she's gigantic, which always is a good character trait, I feel like.
Absolutely.
She is, like, a complete jerk, and complete jerks are always the best characters.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just, like, very funny, and, like, she's, like, okay, I guess maybe we should talk a little bit about the, like, kind of, like, because we get, like, a little bit of more like, oh, Grover's in a dress humor.
Yeah, fuck that.
Yeah, I have decided it's not good.
After much consideration, guy in a dress humor is bad, actually.
Yeah, I mean, it's changed from like, oh, maybe this is a funny reference to, you know, Norse mythology. I'm doing a nerd voice, even though I'm imitating you, so I'm sorry about that.
I mean, no, that's fair.
But yeah, it's not. It's obviously just like, oh, he has, you know, obvious curly hair and facial hair, and that's not feminine of him, and he's just a boy in a wedding dress. Isn't that funny? And no, it's not funny. It's not funny at all. It's complete horseshit.
Rick, you know how to write good jokes. You didn't need to resort to this.
Absolutely not. But yeah, I do love Clarice because she is like, Grover is doing an obvious like disguise, and she's like, that's obviously Grover right in front of me. And that part of it is really funny.
I think like one of the things we said about Annabeth in book 1 was like, oh, you know, she's interested in being a traditional Greek hero, but she's not all about the fighting. She's also about like the architecture and the wisdom and the stuff. And Clarice is just about the fighting.
Clarice is just about the fighting, and it kind of rules.
Yeah, I honestly respect that.
I can't say anything bad about her because my recording volume went up too high. But yes, it's really she's just so perfect. I am a huge Clarice fan. She might be my favorite character now.
I guess we already ended on a high note, but I also wanted to say a positive thing that like goes through all 3 of these chapters is just the dialogue and the like bantering back and forth between Percy and Annabeth is just, it's always really funny and really engaging, and it feels convincingly like something that 2 13-year-olds would be yelling at each other. Like, they're making faces at each other, they are accidentally stamping on one another, but you can still really tell that they care about each other and are good friends.
Being able to authentically portray these like 2 kids who are like have been forged in the fires of friendship and are like with each other in that way, but are also simultaneously like exhausted to their core, and to portray both aspects in like an even way, consistently, I've got to respect that. I don't know, it's good.
It's really good.
I had some articles pulled up, but I think I want to save those for next time.
Interesting. I was actually cooking up a game in the background that I want to play at some point, but we can definitely save that.
Okay, we will save the article and the game. I think that'll do it for us today.
I think so.
If you'd like to reach the show, you can drop us an email at unwisegirlspod@gmail.com, or find us on Twitter at unwisegirls, where we also have a link to our official Discord server. If you like us, thank you. And you can also support us by continuing to download our episodes, maybe leaving a nice rating and review, and checking out our Patreon. For $1 a month, you get a special role on our Discord server, marking you as a camp counselor. For $3 a month, you get an even specialer role as a friend of Dionysus, and access to all of our bonus content. This week we talked about...
What did we talk about? Oh, shit.
Oh, we talked about, let me see.
Oh, right. We talked about the Adventure Zone finale.
Yeah, this week we talked about the Adventure Zone finale, and a bunch of other stuff. Including how many... listener, write into our Twitter account. How many Taz tattoos on the Adventure Zone subreddit do you think is a reasonable number to have posts about? The answer Jane had might surprise you. If you want to find out, go support us on Patreon.
Engage with me in the marketplace of ideas.
If you're feeling especially generous, for $5, you get the specialist role of Aphrodite's Chosen, all our bonus content, and you get a special shout out at the end of every episode.
Speaking of which, this week we'd like to thank Mercy, Veronica, Friend, and Medusa, Daddy Poseidon's ex.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, I'd also like to quickly just like put the call out for something. Which is, despite having a few wonderful patrons, and you know, some people in the Discord server who we talk to a lot, who we know like talk to the show, who listen to the show, we haven't actually been left any reviews yet on the on any of the pages for the podcast. So I was wondering if you, Jacqueline, would agree that if someone leaves a nice review and then puts something within reason in quotation marks underneath it, we both have to read it out on air.
Oh, certainly, yes. I will read any review that you leave. I don't care if it's, I don't know, Dionysus huge boobies or something like that. Then, like, you can make us say that.
Mr. Double D's.
And as we always say at the end of every episode,
see you next week, Camp Half-Blood.
See you next week, Camp Half-Blood.